James Fry's A Million Little Pieces is a heart-gripping, page-turning, gut-wrenching plunge into the abyss of human degradation. When we first meet the book's hero, he is covered in blood and vomit, missing several teeth, suffering from an open gash in his cheek, and riding on an airplane whose origin and destination he does not know. This agonizing image of Fry's debasement is a fitting representation of the dehumanization that results from advanced substance dependency. The grotesqueness of his outward appearance is a faithful echo of his inward misery, and his helpless ignorance of where he is, where he's been, or where he's going is a perfect metaphor for his emotional, spiritual, and existential condition. As the story unfolds, the narrator reveals increasingly humiliating, terrifying, and crazed episodes from his experiences as an alcoholic and crack addict. At the same time, these episodes of madness contrast with the serenity and empowerment Fry discovers in various places, in the I Ching, in nature, in his girlfriend Lily, and in the exertion of his own willpower during his stay at an unnamed rehab facility. Fry tells the story in a hard-edged style that strips the sentimentality away from his story and captures the brutality of his experiences. The directness and objectivity of his language reflects the book's theme of truth. Again and again in the book, Fry insists that the ultimate value, the only thing of any worth in all of human existence, in fact, is the direct, brutal truth. Midway through the book, Fry satirizes a rock star who glamorizes the details of his addiction for his own self-aggrandizement. Fry denounces the rock star's portrayal of the nature of substance dependency in unambiguous language. That is all that matters, Fry writes, the truth. That this man is standing in front of me and everyone else in this room lying to us is heresy. The truth is all that matters. At the end of his stay in the rehab facility, Fry's final act of redemption is to write out a list of all the terrible things he's done since he started drinking at age 10. It is a harrowing list that starts off with minor acts of delinquency and ends with a melodramatic murder of a Parisian priest that seems like it was ripped right out of a novel by Dostoevsky. Writing out the truth of his experiences and confessing the truth of his deepest, darkest secrets allows Fry to finally understand the truth of where he's been and to develop an understanding of what his destination might be. Along the way, Fry has refused to accept any beliefs in a higher power, the 12 Steps, or Alcoholics Anonymous that strike him as inauthentic. He is going to rely entirely on his own clear-eyed self-understanding. Although the rehab counselors warn Fry that his chances of staying substance-free without following a recovery program are 1,000,000 to 1, we see at the end of the book that his willpower is indeed sufficient to keep him from relapsing as he resolutely discards a pint glass of whiskey. Fry's book is a testimony to the power of truth and confession to overcome the shackles of dependency and addiction. Perhaps it was because A Million Little Pieces so vividly attested to the value of true confession as a therapeutic wonder drug that Oprah Winfrey elevated Fry's book to bestseller status. Winfrey, whose talk show pioneered the cult of therapeutic confession, was captivated by Fry's book, and her selection of A Million Little Pieces as the Oprah Book Club selection in September 2005 catapulted Fry to celebrity status both as an author and as a kind of self-help icon. Fry appeared on Winfrey's show and in other public venues to tell his story as a way of helping other people negotiate their own paths from addiction to recovery. Fry's book and Oprah's show both articulated the same message, that the truth shall set you free. Of course, the catch is that Fry's book is full of things that are not true. Some of the book's earliest reviewers had expressed incredulity regarding some details of Fry's story, but an exhaustively researched expose on the website The Smoking Gun, posted in January of 2006, utterly devastated Fry's credibility. The Smoking Gun article explains that rather than being on the run from the law in 3 states, Fry's only run-in with the law was a petty citation for DUI shortly after he graduated from college. Rather than having served 3 months in jail, Fry seems to have spent less than 5 hours in a holding pen. Fry rearranged the details of the death of a young girl from his hometown in a train accident to write himself into the story, and his college transcript shows little evidence that he spent his entire undergraduate career blacked out on whiskey and crack. The picture of Fry that emerges from the article in The Smoking Gun is that of a privileged suburban frat boy who has embellished a minor run-in with the law and a typical phase of collegiate experimentation with drugs and alcohol into an epic tale of runaway degeneracy. When Oprah discovered that her pet author had been perpetuating untruths in his supposedly non-fiction memoir, her indignation made national headlines and resulted in the most talked-about literary scandal of the 21st century. Of course, it is easy to condemn Fry for his act of misrepresentation. Readers turn to memoirs as a way of learning from the experiences of others. When Fry presents falsified experiences as real events, he abuses the reader's trust, and if his readers are substance abusers seeking clues about how to overcome their dependency, Fry's misrepresentations could actually get them killed. A theme of Fry's book is that if he can kick substances, anyone can. Although Fry certainly seems to have worked through substance dependency issues, it seems to be the case that his condition was not nearly so advanced as he characterizes it in his book. Assuming that Fry was only a mid-level substance abuser and not the one whiskey soda away from instant death level abuser he presents in the book, then it is not true that Fry's method will work for someone who is in an advanced stage of addiction. This is a case where truth in memoir might actually be a matter of life and death, and in which the unethical memoirist could become an unwitting murderer. In addition to the ethical problem of lying to other people, it is also problematic to lie to yourself for all of the reasons that Fry's book illustrates. Someone who lies to himself and others can never know who he is or exert any meaningful control over where he's going. One of the most compelling themes in Fry's book is the absolute necessity of committing oneself wholeheartedly to the truth. Moreover, as far as the craft of memoir is concerned, the truth might actually have made a better memoir than A Million Little Pieces. Although Fry has said that he falsified parts of the story to make it more compelling as a narrative, the book's greatest aesthetic flaws are its most far-flung touches of hyperbole, the Novocaine-free root canal and the murder of the priest, for example. More importantly, telling the truth of his story of substance abuse would have allowed Fry to portray himself as more of a human character and less of a Luciferian anti-hero. When you read A Million Little Pieces as fiction, it is clear how derivative it is of the literary works of predecessors such as Ernest Hemingway, William S. Burroughs, Bret Easton Ellis, and David Foster Wallace. The memoirist who tells the truth is in a promising position to escape literary influences by keeping faith with the reality of his or her own experiences. The further Fry veers away from his own truth, the more his writing partakes of melodrama, stereotype, and imitation. It is also possible, as many commentators have done, to regard Fry and his novel as symptoms of a wider cultural problem in the social fabric of 21st century America. We live in a culture that eats up misrepresentations for entertainment and rewards lying with enormous success. Fry himself, who has profited greatly from both his initial success and his later notoriety, can be seen as a personification of this tendency. At the same time, Fry might be seen as a victim of a humiliation culture that revels in the opportunity to ritually castigate a member of its hyper-tribe, to drag them out in front of a public audience and make them squirm before the gaze of the media. Oprah Winfrey herself can be accused of contributing to both trends, the elevation of misrepresentations and the craze of popular scandal-mongering and celebrity shaming. Winfrey herself has also been accused of misrepresenting details of her own personal biography. Reasonable people may differ on the question of whether this cultural context makes Fry seem more or less guilty. At the same time, Oprah originally responded to Fry's book with an overpowering sense of its power and forcefulness, and even readers who are aware of Fry's credibility issues find the book compelling and even in some sense truthful. Nan Talese, Fry's publisher and a towering personality in her own right, defended Fry on Oprah's show, explaining, "A memoir is different from an autobiography. A memoir is an author's remembrance of a certain period in his life. Now, the responsibility, as far as I am concerned, is, does it strike me as valid? Does it strike me as authentic? I mean, I'm sent things all the time, and I think they're not real. I don't think they're authentic. I don't think they're good. I don't believe them. In this instance, I absolutely believed what I read." Talese implies that a story can be authentic, even if it isn't true. Critics might characterize Talese's statement as an irresponsible and underhanded dodge, another illustration that modern society is losing sight of the value of truth-telling as a moral imperative. It is also possible, however, to consider that Talese and Winfrey may disagree on the nature of what the word truth refers to. As a television journalist, Winfrey relies on a commonsensical, objective distinction between things that did happen and things that did not happen. As a literary publisher, however, Talese is sensitive to the manner in which fictional novels can embody figurative truths, which may be even more profound than literal truths. The fact that Moby Dick never existed does not mean that there's not an unkillable white whale swimming through the oceans of the human heart. Talese's distinction between memoir and autobiography suggests that the craft of memoir makes room for subjective experience. The memoirist, Talese maintains, is responsible primarily to the perception of a memory rather than to the objective forensics of an event. As Mira Bartok explains in The Memory Palace, memory can be faulty. Not only is human memory prone to forgetfulness and inaccuracies, there is also a certain element of self-glamorization embedded in all memory. We are always the heroes of our own stories, and this key feature of all human memory implies that real memory is itself a kind of fiction. Fry partly attributes his own falsehoods to the distortional effects of human self-perception, especially the self-perception of people in extreme states of emotional distress. On her show, Oprah asked Fry, "Why did you lie? Why did you have to lie about the time you spent in jail? Why did you do that?" Fry responded, "I think one of the coping mechanisms I developed was sort of this image of myself that was greater, that was greater than what I actually was. In order to get through the experience of the addiction, I thought of myself as being tougher than I was and badder than I was, and it helped me cope. When I was writing the book, instead of being as introspective as I should have been, I clung to that image." If we take Fry at his word on this point, we can read A Million Little Pieces as a kind of truthful description of a fictional persona. It is the true story of the inflated character Fry imagined himself to be, the autobiography of an imaginary person, false on an objective level, but glowing with a kind of inner truth about how demoralizing, dehumanizing, and self-destructive substance addiction can be. Wherever we come down on these questions, grappling with them provides an opportunity to analyze the craft of memoir itself and the assumptions memoirists and memoir readers make about reality and representation.